everyone, and welcome to episode 248 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. Ryan, Adam, and Trey here with you this evening for our 2024 CFL Draft preview. Today is Wednesday, April 24th. The draft takes place, Tuesday, April 30th. I believe that's a Tuesday, if the quick math is correct. So less than a week away from the CFL Draft and the next round of CFL prospects getting picked by their respective teams. We're here to give a high-level overview of the draft today. We are not your draft prospect experts. There are other there's other CFL content out there if you would like that. We don't know a ton about the prospects, but we do know the order teams are picking. We do know the team rosters, and I think we can make some speculation of what kinds of strategies they may go with based on that. So we'll talk through all of that today. We'll talk through some big news on recently retired CFL star shortly, and everyone's favorite topic, the air quotes salary cap. In the CFL news has come out. We'll talk about all that today. We'll take your comments and questions as well in our live chat over on our YouTube and Facebook feeds. Thanks to presenting sponsor Game Time TV. Learn more at gametimetv.ca or facebook.com/gametimetvmb. All right, let's bring in the rest of the crew here this evening. First, it's great Adam Stewart. Adam, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing good. Anytime it's 22 above on an April day in Saskatchewan, that's a pretty good day. And, lots of things going on, lots of seating things getting planned out. Been polishing a blue tractor. That's the only thing I'll say that's really nice and blue. Right, Trey?
Yeah, I mean, the Leafs and the Jets aren't doing too good, and they're in blue, I guess. Doing okay. Just chugging along, life, man. Getting ready for football season. I don't know how I'm going to handle everything with all what I got going on, but football season's coming, guys. And our first home preseason game's the 31st. I guess the Bombers go to Saskatchewan a few weeks before that, so it's coming up, man. I'm getting excited. And seeing all these people, seeing Pat McAfee talk about the whiteout makes me think, oh, man, Princess Auto Field's way better than the whiteout party, man. So if you want to come to Winnipeg, Pat, come to see that. He shit talks the CFL, so I don't know if we should let him. But
I have seen him hyping up the Jets. Everybody's been hyping up the whiteout. Of course, hockey playoffs in full swing. We'll talk maybe a little bit about that at the end of the show if you're watching on the YouTube feeds and that. We're going to switch it up a little bit from how we've done it in the past, where normally you'll listen to us talk about the CFL for like an hour, and then we'll ramble on about random topics and then close out the show. We're going to do it differently. We're going to close it out after the CFL topics this time around. That's what's going to get posted to the audio podcast feeds as well. And then after we play the outro at the end, we'll go beyond the countdown. And we'll hang around for a little while and chat about random topics, take more questions in the chat. So look forward to that at the end of the show as well. Last time out on the podcast, Adam and I had a great discussion, a fun discussion on game themes was one of the big topics. Teams announcing their home game themes. And Adam, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm wearing my this particular shirt tonight to remind you that green is, in fact, the color.
Yes, and Delight Teeth, you need to be wearing that shirt, apparently.
I planned to wear this shirt yesterday, not going to lie, and then thought about this and was like, no, I have to wear the green shirt just for Adam. So.
Well, it is the color. I mean, it's pretty much non-negotiable. At least it's not a salmon shirt in the middle of a whiteout.
Oh, man. It's bad enough just being the one guy wearing the home jersey, man. You know what I mean? But wearing off color like that.
And again, the Simpsons nail it.
Did they actually?
Well, I mean, they had that one episode where Homer wore a salmon shirt to work while everybody else was wearing a white shirt. So, you know.
Okay, we'll come back to this and beyond the countdown at the end of the show because I've never seen an episode of The Simpsons. I want to know how this keeps happening. We'll talk about it later. But we're going to talk about a bunch of CFL stuff. Your draft preview today. Next week will be after the draft. So we'll recap the draft, and then we'll start getting into our season preview content Before we do go any further, I don't want to forget to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples in the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Also, before we get into the main content, there's a link in the episode description to our Discord community. Come join us over there. Maybe we'll chat along during the CFL Draft this upcoming week as well. Lots of CFL chatter, NFL chatter. The NFL Draft is, I think, this week as well. NHL playoffs going on. Lots of sports stuff that you can talk with us in between episodes there if that's something that interests you. Link in the description. It is free to join. All right, let's get to our first CFL topic. Before we get to our draft preview, a couple of big news items that have come out. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago, I think we talked about the great Sean Lemon deciding to hang up the cleats after signing an extension with the Montreal Alouettes. And, he was not scheduled to play next season already, and he certainly won't be now because the league dropped a bombshell today that Sean Lemon has been suspended indefinitely for wagering on the CFL back in 2021 while he was a member of the Calgary Stampeders. I forget where. I think I may have read it even included one game that he played in. So he's been suspended for the CFL on this. I think it's fitting to go to a resident betting expert here first. Trey, thoughts on
man. Yeah, he seems to break the one golden rule is he can't. It's one thing to bet on sports. It's even one to bet on. Oh, can you hear my kid crying? Oh my god, that's so loud. I can hear he's losing his mind.
Do you need to step away from
no,
it?
No. His mom's in there. He's just losing his mind. Wait, train of thought here. Yeah, you broke the golden rule to bet on your team in the game you're in. That's the biggest golden rule, which I think you can't do. I was having discussions on Twitter. Like, some people don't understand this whole betting on yourself thing. If you bet on your team to win or betting on the over. But then someone else made the comment too, like, what if a quarterback bets the over on his receiver, then he's just going to do everything and throw to that receiver all day that might not actually benefit the win too, right? Yeah. Like, if Caleros does nothing but throw it to Waller-Tarski, because his over might be a bigger odds than someone like Dembski or Lawler or something like that. Yeah. And are the Bombers really going to win? They're not going to care about the win as long as you get the over. So oh man, he's really upset. Maybe I will have to leave after this, but
yeah, no problem.
I'll get my thoughts through here. Huge tarnish his reputation. It's one of those arguments. I get both sides because, again, in horse racing, you're completely allowed to bet on your own horse because there isn't prop betting. It's my number one. There isn't certain things like that. But even with being allowed to bet on horse racing, it's caused its own problems, and it's not as regulated as these sports gambling sites are. My biggest issue is, how did it take 3 years to ding him? That's Porter in the NBA, 2 days. It took the NBA 2 days to find out, and then they knew what was going on. It just took another couple of weeks before they got all their ducks in a row to suspend him forever. How does this take 3 years in the modern era? Like, I don't understand. What does he like? He hit it that well. And to me, what's the benefit of this? Like, I get it to a degree. See, I get cheating in sports when if you do the PEDs, all that, because that helps you win. But betting on yourself, or betting against yourself, it just seems so dollar amount, and it seems so anti what the purpose of sports is, right? To the players, it's turned into, yes, they're $100 million contracts or $1 billion contracts if you're Ohtani. It's turned into stats. It's turned into this, but it's really about winning the damn cup, right? You want to win the Stanley Cup. You want to win the Grey Cup. And just betting on this, it tarnishes everything. Like, Pete Rose is one of the best baseball players of all time. And I bet Barry Bonds gets in the Hall of Fame before he does, just because of this tarnishing gambling has had in sports. And I just think it's such I'm really upset about it because Sean Lemon's the beauty. You know what I mean? He's been the face of this league to some degree. He's been on several teams. He came back and led Montreal to this championship, which, I don't know. It just kind of tarnishes it all to me. Same thing if Ohtani gets caught doing something. You know what I mean? Even though Ohtani didn't get caught, it just ruins so much of the sport for me. Adam, like, I know you're not as big of a gambler, man, but what do you think about it?
I know I'm in the same boat as you are. It ruins the game. It ruins that reputation of the player. And unfortunately, this is a guy that, he's been around everywhere in the CFL for a long time right now. He was on so many teams, and it's just a disappointment, on the CFL's behalf, that Trey nailed it on the head. How does it take you 3 years to find out that this guy was betting on a game against BC when he was in Calgary? I mean, come on, it should not take you that many days to figure this out. I know there's other things that they're probably working on and everything else, and I know that they mentioned that, our Genius sports programs will be able to track this and chase this out. Yeah, I seen the laugh, Trey. All right. It's not Genius Sports' problem. This is a CFL executive issue. This should have been dealt with 2.5 years ago, if at the very latest. It took the NHL, as Trey was saying with NBA, how long it took till he found a guy in half a day that he was betting on himself or to lose or to win or whatever it was. Ottawa had the same problem here this year with Senators. There was a player that was suspended for half a season for, again, betting when he's not supposed to be betting. So how does it take you 2.5 years, CFL? Sorry, but if I'm in the famous words of some certain Sportsnet announcer, do better.
I mean, this is not a league that's known for its prompt actions on cases.
Careful, Ryan.
I mean, it's 100% true, though, right? Like,
it is. I mean, the CFL is usually terrible at getting anything done at any fashion of speed. I mean, right now they have a current investigation into something else, and that's going to get buried under the wayside now with probably this.
Yeah, it's going to take 3 years to come up with a resolution on the Chad Kelly case. Like,
exactly. I mean, the guy could be retired before look at what happened here. Sean Lemon actually retired before they could get this case out. Now, I'm sure he retired because of this, but
I don't want to speculate on that wholeheartedly, but like the timing's curious, right? Like that he signed the contract extension with Montreal. He seemed to be excited to be a piece of it, and then up and out of nowhere, he retired, and then shortly after that, we get this news coming out.
And there's no news conference, no nothing. It was just a quick, quiet retirement. Yeah, on him. He didn't have anything really with Montreal or anything really to say. He just kind of, thanks for the memory, see ya.
But guys do that too, right? Which makes me kind of want to give him a little benefit of doubt in that sense of, like, we see so many guys just have a change of heart. We just had one last week we talked about with the Riders. Who was that? That at the last minute, the offensive line just mentioned he was.
Yeah, that was shoot. But yeah, even the other one here, Jackson Bennett. I mean, he just finished retiring. He was only here for 3 or 4 years. But what I'm getting at is this is a guy that's been a defensive leader and one of the best in the CFL for many years. And he's been known to be vocal. So that's why I would think this guy would want in the news conference and have a proper way of sending him off. Like I said, the circumstances are a little suspicious. Could be whatever. Maybe it is just coincidence. Nevertheless, he's getting the biggest fine or biggest suspension ever gotten, an indefinite suspension from the CFL. I don't know if they're continuing to investigate this or they're doing something else. Nevertheless, it makes the league look bad. Of course, it's going to make Sean Lemon look bad. I don't know if I agree quite with Trey, if it makes the Montreal Alouettes Grey Cup win last year look a little bad. I don't think that's the case. I think more of that was just, that's a team effort. It's a team game in the end, and they won it as a team, and Lemon contributed accordingly. So I don't think.
Well, and just to add to that, sorry to cut you off there, Adam. That this was when he was with Calgary in 2021, and like Trey had said, and Trey unfortunately did have to drop off, presumably for the rest of the episode. Maybe he'll be back later. I'm not sure. But I'm glad he was able to kind of give his take on this. Kind of like he said, like this isn't performance enhancing drugs. It's not like Sean Lemon's doing stuff that's going to elevate the performance of the Alouettes beyond, like, did he bet on himself and then, maybe try a little harder? I don't know, but it doesn't sound like he did that while he's with the Alouettes organization. So doesn't taint their Grey Cup victory at all, in my opinion. I can see how people might draw that conclusion because, if this was reported and actioned on a couple of years ago, would he be part of the team? That team was stacked on the defense last year. As much as he was a huge part of it, I think they still would have, performed similarly. So, sucks to see news like this come out. It's definitely a gray area, fine line on betting. To pull fantasy into the mix, it's always interesting to see. You'll see players out there filling out their fantasy teams. I know Austin Eckler in the NFL has his own fantasy football podcast, or we've seen guys say they lost their fantasy championship to themselves, basically. And it's that's a gray area to begin with there too. But in those cases, I think there might be legalities in there that they can't play for money. I think they might be allowed to play fantasy sports, but they can't play for money.
But you remember, this really does, though, put a big black eye on CFL and some of their endorsements, right? I mean, they get big. The CFL gets big money from betting. Yeah. That's one of their main things that kind of kept them going, actually. And if you can't, if you're worried about the fundamentals and that somebody might be throwing a game or doing something, that can ruin the credibility of a CFL right away in betting, and that could lose a lot of betting income for the CFL. So I could see why the CFL is going to be so extremely strict on this. Then again, I don't know. Like I said, it's something new. It's unprecedented right now for the CFL. They're going to work through it, and we'll see what happens here. But again, 2.5 years, guys. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Great way to sum it up. From one money topic to another, I guess here, the CFL announced its salary cap fines this week. Teams, it is a soft cap like it is in almost every sport except the NHL. You can go over the cap by up to $100,000. If you go more, you'll get fined the amount you go over, I believe. If you go more than 100,000 over, according to this article on the CFL website, I think you might start losing some draft picks. Teams go over the cap every year, and this year there was only 3 of them though. The Hamilton Tiger Cats went over by $2,654. That didn't pan out too well. But they were pretty close. The Bombers went over by $25,947, and the BC Lions went the closest at $85,979. So these 3 teams are getting fines, while everybody else was under the cap. Kudos to the aforementioned Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes for getting it done with a roster underneath the salary cap, because... And I'm sad Trey couldn't stick around for this topic because I know he's passionate about it as well. You should always go over the soft cap. 100% of the time.
Yeah. I mean, what's the real penalty for going over the cap up to 100,000? I mean, if you start losing second, third round picks in the CFL draft, in a way, sometimes it really don't matter. But you know what? You don't want to really lose draft picks. That being said, you should go up to $99,999 as far as I'm concerned. Why not? You're paying just a league fine and saying, okay, sorry. The only one that makes me laugh is Hamilton because that team is bad. I mean, besides Tim White, I mean, there was no reason to go over the cap if you're the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
I mean, it was so little over the cap, though. We're talking $2,600. We're talking what? Half a week paycheck for Bo Levi Mitchell, if that, right? Or whatever. It's not that. It's not like teams are going millions over the cap, right? Even 85,000, that's a bit over minimum. I don't know what the minimum league contract is nowadays, but I think that's more than that, but probably not a ton over that. So we're talking a player and a half that teams are going over this soft cap here. And if there's no hard penalty on it, you do whatever puts you in the best position to succeed, right? if spending $50,000 over the cap is enough to help propel my team to host a home playoff game, am I not potentially making more than that by the revenue of that home playoff game?
Exactly. No, that's the thing. So, I mean, if you think really, but again, is 50,000 really the key that's going to pull you over, or is it
No, but
100,000, even up to 99,000 or whatever? You might get one more depth player. I mean, okay. But I mean, I think the league minimum is somewhere around 65,000. So, yeah, you can sign another for draft pick for the year. Let him sit on the practice roster, I suppose. I mean, other than that, really, I don't I mean, it's not going to gain you much on that. It's the team build up before all that really matters, and it's your depth and all that before. So, and most of that you should have under the cap or know what you're dealing with the cap on that. If you're going way over the cap and you don't really care about draft picks, well, that's a whole different ball of wax, I think.
That would be a really interesting strategy to see, though. Look at the Bombers. They didn't win the Grey Cup for 29 years. Eventually, do you get desperate? Nothing's worked so far. Do you go way over the cap, stack the team? We're going to make the run. We're in win now mode. And I don't think anybody's going to do that. And I wonder if they would crack down on it eventually if a team tried to. Also, you're probably just based on, standard CFL contracts. You're not going to get in a position where you're going to go that far over the cap. But
well, I would think CFL would just disapprove trades after a while if you're so far over the cap, right? I mean, I don't know if that's in the CBA or not, but I'm just thinking, let's say Saskatchewan is 280,000 over the cap already, and they're trying to trade in for Willie Jefferson and Zach Collaros, some of Winnipeg's biggest contracts, and they're giving them nothing back to go and balance it roughly. I think if I was CFL commissioner, I'd say, come on, you got to have your cap a little bit closer.
Yeah, but you see, if it's Saskatchewan, you have an easy solution. You just throw a bunch of guys on the pre-practice squad, and you're good.
Absolutely, but that's Chris Jones' theory, so that's Edmonton's now. We don't get that theory anymore. We're not allowed to do that. So Edmonton, though, I hear they got a new pre-practice roster, so should be good.
Perfect. I think we're in agreement that, it's not going to be groundbreaking, the difference in the amount teams are going over the cap, but and so maybe there's not planning to go over it. But if you're in a position, whether it's due to injuries or something else, where you're like, we need to bring somebody in, but we can't go and bring this guy in because that's going to put us a bit over the cap. Don't do that. Who cares about going over the cap if it means your team's going to be successful?
Yeah,
you take
exactly.
the fine, you'll make more money in the long run. You get success this year, boom, you get a home playoff game. Maybe that leads to attracting more free agents next year. That brings you more success for years to come, right? Spending $30,000 over the cap to potentially go on a run for a couple of years. Easy choice there, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, mainly this spring always gets brought up every spring so that us diehard fans can go and shame the Winnipeg Blue Bombers into saying, look, you should give back your West Division trophy because you guys are cheaters and you went over the cap, and oh no, shame.
I'm surprised it was only 25,000, to be honest.
I thought Winnipeg would have been one of the worst.
After they signed Kenny Lawler last offseason, everybody was, lots of complaints about it. So,
and then they brought Schoen back, and they bring everybody else. Well, that's 24, I guess. But I mean, everybody looked at it and was like, Winnipeg, how are they doing this? And well, I guess there's your answer. But I mean, honestly, 30 grand over, and that's it. It's a pretty good deal.
And if the league starts cracking down on it, there's always the good old Cavis Reed method, cash in the envelope.
We've you never know. That might be now just maybe teams making bets on other things.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, let's get to our CFL draft preview here, Adam. Once again, like we said at the top of the show, not huge draft experts. I feel like you, correct me if I'm wrong, do you kind of keep tabs on any of the youth sports stuff, a little college football?
I kind of keep track of the scores, kind of. If I hear a player's name, sometimes I'll pick it out. Again, sometimes in Yorkton, small town. So you do get to see once in a while a player and kind of recognize somebody that's been that should maybe be ending up sometime in a draft. But overall, not as much as I really should. Yeah, kind of needs and wants is mostly what I know on this kind of for the teams that are in the CFL. So.
Yeah, that's the same boat I'm in as well. Just not enough time to consume all of that content. I find it hard to find the content out there on CFL Draft prospects. I wish we could be a source that provides more in depth on that, but I struggle to find the information myself unless you start going and watching the videos out there, of the combine and their performance and their highlights and things like that, and dissecting those yourselves. I will shout out a couple of folks who do great coverage when it comes to CFL draft stuff. I believe it's Canadian Football Perspective. Connor O'Neill was with us on the Big Free Agent Frenzy show, talking a little bit about the draft. I know him and the guys there do a lot of draft coverage, really in-depth player interviews, things like that. So check all of their stuff out. I saw the fellas over at the X's and Argos podcast, I think, just got back together to do their Argos draft preview this very week. And I know Ben and his crew there are very in-depth on knowledge on things like that as well. And then kind of what we'll be leaning on a little bit here as Trey's back. We got Trey back in. What we'll be leaning on a little bit here as we look at some of the draft stuff is some of the mock drafts out there. So Marshall Ferguson on CFL.ca did a first mock draft back in the first week of April and then just published a second one today. So you can find those on the CFL website. And John Hodge from 3 Down Nation did one back in March and one at the beginning of April as well on 3downnation.com. So go check those out for more in-depth on the prospects as we go through and talk through things. Trey, you're back. Everything's all good?
Oh, the little shit just needed me to yell at him before he go to bed, apparently. So that's all. He got a good dad yelling to go to bed, and then he passed right out. So,
All right.
Go to sleep.
Oh, Papa Bear takes no shit after 9:30, man. So it's bedtime, man. Because then he's going to be grumpy in the morning.
Saskatchewan.
Wow, then he can go live with you for a bit, man. I don't care.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
Bad suggestion, man. Bad suggestion.
Oh, man.
Also, I was going to bring up one other thing. There is a media advisory as well out for the CFL. Dwayne Ford, of course, he knows lots about the CFL and CFL draft lots of times. And Marshall Ferguson will be doing a draft preview tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be over. I'll put it in our Discord channel. If anybody actually wants to go and just check it out, they got a link there. So, hey, why not go check out what they think of the draft as well?
Yeah. And hopefully it really hits home that we know what we're talking about as we try to fumble our way through draft talk. All right, CFL Draft, Tuesday, April 30th. The Edmonton Elks are on the clock with the first overall pick. First round draft order has Edmonton, Ottawa, Saskatchewan, Calgary, Toronto. Got the pick from Hamilton. I forget what trade that was involved in. BC's at number 6. Hamilton gets the 7th. Was that the Jordan Williams trade? That might have been. So Toronto and Hamilton swapped spots. Winnipeg at 8, Montreal at 9. We're going to go team by team here, I think, and talk a little bit about each of them. We'll start off with the Edmonton Elks, who are at first overall. Chris Jones, always a wild card. You never know what he's going to do. The Elks have the first overall pick. They pick 10th overall in round 2. They have 2 second-round picks from a trade with Montreal. Pick in the 3rd round. Back-to-back picks in the 4th. Nothing in the 5th. Nothing in the 6th. And then 2 picks in the 7th and 1 in the 8th. So a little all over the place there for the Elks. But they are at number 1 on the board to start off the draft. Adam, any thoughts on what you think the Elks draft day should look like?
Well, first things first, Chris Jones will wake up. He's going to go and he's going to watch a bunch of films on athletes. He's going to go watch some track and field. He's going to go watch some weightlifting, and he's going to go and just pick somebody that can do everything like that. I think, because that's how Chris Jones usually works. However, he's got G-Roy Simon beside him, and G-Roy was a great receiver back in the day. And you know what? Because the Edmonton Elks brought in a Canadian receiver this year in Curly Gittens Jr., I am going to say that they will be bringing in a receiver this year, probably to just, if nothing else, for depth, a Canadian receiver. They know that they can probably get right away. There is a receiver, I believe, out of Auburn that I would say is probably the right pick for them. Nick Mardiner. I never pronounce last names right, so I apologize in advance. Once you're in the CFL, we'll get it right for you. Nevertheless, I think he'll be a good receiver. Again, University of Auburn usually produces some pretty good receiving core players. I mean, they have a good quarterback system that usually end up being defensive backs. So maybe Chris Jones will go that way because the guy can play two positions. But I think I'll go with, that they'll go after a receiver in this draft. Mainly because I don't think they really have the depth in Canadian receiver like some other teams do in the CFL West. So if you look at their depth chart, like I said, I don't see very much Canadian receivers. So we'll go with that. I'll say Canadian receiver.
Trey?
I'll go a different route here with Edmonton as they just got that trade in for a Canadian receiver. Maybe they'll go a little bit different route, and Chris Jones being a defensive guy, maybe going defense. A couple people have pegged linebacker Joel Dublanko from Cincinnati going first. Could be a thought there for the defensive-minded Chris Jones. Why is the name escaping me right now of the receiver? Did they get the guy from Toronto?
Gittens.
The name just escaped me for a second there. Yeah. So I don't know if they, always, you can never have too much Canadian depth, I guess, especially on the offensive side, but maybe they'll go a different way. Ryan?
Yeah, just comparing these mock drafts we were talking about, I think originally they were kind of in line with what Adam was talking about, leading receiver for the Elks, but now it looks like both of them are leaning towards a linebacker. And I kind of get that with what you said, Chris Jones being that defensive-minded guy, stacking some of that depth at linebacker. Looking back to last year's draft, the Elks went back-to-back at the linebacker position. Round one with Michael Broderick at second overall, and then round two with Jacob Taylor at 18th overall, both still on the roster as of now. So I could see the Elks going that position again. I don't know how strong the offensive line core in this draft is. It's kind of interesting looking at some of the mock drafts that, in years past, it's like round one, 9 teams picking. Okay, it's like 7 offensive linemen. There's a lot more diversity across the board in positions here now. So I think offensive line is the biggest need for the Elks. And so I'd like to see them in round 2 potentially go and take an offensive lineman perhaps. But I think you got to take the best player, best athlete available, and that whether that's a linebacker or a receiver. I think they're both needs that could be filled for this team. So I guess my answer is I agree with both of you guys on your takes on Edmonton there. Any chance you're trading the first overall pick? Quick answers.
I mean, Edmonton's done it before, and last time they did it, Tyrell Richards became a Montreal Alouette. So, I don't know. If I was Edmonton, I wouldn't.
I don't see much stock in it. I know that the Canadian draft picks get thrown around a lot in the CFL. I just don't understand the stock in it because there's very rarely a guy in the top 3 or 4 that like super stick around. You know what I mean? It happens time to time, but. Can you name the last few first overall draft picks in the CFL draft? So, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
So, after the big success of ChatGPT joining us on the show last week to talk about game themes, I tried to get ChatGPT to rank for me how teams have drafted over the last 20 years and what their biggest hits and misses were. It got so confused by whatever I was asking it that it started spitting out a bunch of false information. So we can't go that route, unfortunately, for looking at the top CFL draft picks from the past couple of years. But I agree with you guys. I think you keep it if you're Edmonton. Ottawa is number 2 on the board. They've been in the bottom of the league for the last couple of years. Mock drafts the most recent ones seem to all be honing in on wide receiver for Ottawa. Both Ferguson and Hodge having from Laval, Kevin Mattel going to the Red Blacks. And I think that is absolutely where I would go if I was Ottawa, to wide receiver. You just had Nate Bahar that you got rid of. There is like no Canadian wide receiver depth in Ottawa right now. I think Keaton Bruggeling is probably slated to be the starter to fill that typical Canadian receiver role. And he was back pretty much all season last year. So I think you got to go receiver if you're Ottawa in this draft. Do you guys see it any other way, Trey?
No, I think receiver for them, like kind of like the same reasons that you said. Uncertain quarterback, you're going to need, especially with uncertainty at quarterback, maybe you'll want more American offensive linemen. Maybe you'll want more American defense. So you'll have to fit them in somewhere and get some Canadian in your receiving core, Adam.
Quickly before you go, Adam, I forgot to mention Ottawa has a pick in every round except round 5. And they've got the second pick in each round, it looks like. So.
Okay. No, I think you go with Kevin Mattel. The only issue you got with him is the off-field kind of antics. He had a little bit of an issue off-field. He had an assault charge on him, so been pretty open about it, though. Seemed to be pretty good about it. And the on-field performance is all there. Laval has been a very good team, and he's been a very good receiver for him for the last few years. So, yeah, I think you go receiver. Same reason as you said for Edmonton. Depth-wise, you just can't have enough skilled wide receivers. And then I think we'll be talking about skilled wide receivers in about probably 45 to 50 seconds.
Well, I'll drag this out a little bit before then, so just to get your timing off. Hope you didn't bet on that. Don't bet on our podcast, Adam. While you're on the show, that could lead to problems.
I wonder if Sean Lemon bet on the farm. Maybe that was the issue.
Oh, yeah, bet the ant farms. Ottawa, historically, year after year, Ottawa is going offensive line early in the draft. And I remember last year, they had the first overall pick. They went with Dante Bull, which was a surprise to me because I think the year before they went back-to-back offensive linemen. I feel like the year before that they did as well. I don't know if this is a team that needs to focus on the offensive line in the draft anymore, though, right? They brought in Drew Desjardins a couple of years ago. Who are some of the other big names? Darius Bladak was a huge addition this offseason in the offensive line. They're quickly building, I think, a pretty solid team there on the O-line this year, combined with some of those draft picks that they've had from years past. So don't see that necessarily being a big focus for Ottawa. I think we're kind of on board with them going to wide receiver. At number 3 on the board is the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They've got the third overall pick. They got a pick in round 2, round 3. As I scroll through the list, I think they've just got a pick in every round. Yeah, they're boring. They didn't trade anything yet. Adam, you're the guy in Saskatchewan. You know the best more than us, presumably. What are folks saying out in the fields?
Well, out in the fields are saying that it's kind of getting dry and that we should probably get a good rain before we start. No, wait. They're looking at 2 things, I think. If I was the general manager, if I was Jeremy O'Day of the Rough Riders right now, there's 2 things that I should really look at. And I mean, I've preached this first thing for 4 years now, or since I've ever been on the podcast. They still need some O-line depth in Canadian. If there's a very good top talent O-lineman that could play and is almost CFL ready, it's time for him to come out. They don't need development O-linemen. They've done this over the years. They've had Zach Fry. They've had Logan Furland. He's developed into a good offensive lineman. There's other guys out there, though, that they've had bad luck developing. And you look at Josiah St. John. That's not where they need to go in this draft. They need a guy that can play right away because the Riders are a team that's actually kind of intriguing, and they've got a good running back. They need some help for him, I think. And if they can get some guy that can really start right away and can be within game 6 or game 7 right up to speed and ready to go, I think that's where they need to go now. They don't, again, no development this time for them. But O-line is important for them. The other side of the football also is important. The D-line, I think they need to look at finding some defensive linemen, defensive backs, maybe a little bit, but more defensive linemen for the in the Canadian position. They don't have a whole lot of depth in there as well. I think either side of the football in the trenches is where the Riders really got to look. But please don't take another wide receiver, Jeremy. I know it's tempting, but please don't.
Yeah, I look at it, the position that I key on for the Riders, actually, I think one of the only ones you didn't talk about there, which is the linebacker position. Because you go back a couple of years ago, we were talking about the Riders at linebacker with names like, well, Cam Judge was there at some point, right? Yeah, Cam Judge was with the Riders. You had Larry Dean there. You had Micah Tights. We had all of the Darnell Sankey was a part of the Riders, I think, there for a minute. We had all these pieces at linebacker and thought this team was stacked. Kind of all those pieces have gone away there a little bit. And their Canadian depth at linebacker, I think, is lacking a little bit now. I know they just brought in both the Herdman Reed brothers, but I think they bounced around the league for a long time. So, I feel like they're getting up there in terms of their careers a little bit. I think that's a position I would like to maybe see them invest in a little bit more. I think they've got some good young Canadian talent at defensive back, but I know that's a position they want to improve in. Offensive line, it never hurts to improve.
The one thing I'll say, though, to justify the non-linebacker pick, or why I didn't say linebacker, they have got a lot of American linebackers lined up this year. I'm sure those positions are going to go American. They're going to try to put somebody else in the D-line as a Canadian, and that's where it gets a little bit scary, I think, for the Rough Riders if they do that. The Herman Reeds are going to rotate in. They're more special teams players. You got Jameer Thurman on the one side. He's pretty much your bona fide number one starting linebacker on one side. The other two spots, though, I think are going to get filled probably by American. And they brought in some really good guys in there, including one name that really looked out that I think the Riders and fans have been looking forward to. It's Diego Fajot. Yeah, I want to see somebody say that really fast and mess it up. So, yeah. Should be an interesting battle for who makes it an American spot for the linebacker, but there will be an American, I think, for the Riders as a linebacker. Trey, you going to go try to say that name real fast?
No, I'm okay. But no, I kind of lean more towards what Adam says and go with the offensive line. Looking at a guy real quick that slotted in a couple mock drafts. Adam, how do you feel about a 6'6", 337-pound offensive lineman from BC who plays rugby and hockey? Or played hockey. Yeah, grew up in New Zealand and played rugby in the schoolyard, and then came back to Canada to play hockey. That's the kind of guy I think you want on your offensive line to make holes for Ouellette and give hopefully Trevor Harris some time throwing there. So I think Saskatchewan should go with I agree with the offensive line.
Well, the next team up on the board is the Calgary Stampeders at number 4. They've got the 4th overall pick after an unusual down year for the Stamps. They pick again at 13 and 14 in the second round due to a trade with Hamilton. I think that might be part of the Bo Levi Mitchell trade, honestly, for his contract there. Nothing in the third round, 1 in the 4th, 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th, 1 in the 8th. So a couple of back-to-back picks there, though, in round number 2 for Calgary. 3 picks in the top 14 for them to stack up some depth here. I think this is a team that looks at the offensive line just like you guys were just talking about. To me personally, I think the Stamps gone are the years with Bo Levi Mitchell as the cream of the crop at quarterback and his stellar offensive line in Calgary. Which is crazy to talk about because wasn't it just like 2 years ago that they gave up like 17 sacks on a season or something like that, but they've lost a lot of their pieces. Guys like Justin Lawrence, Ryan Sevier, that have been mainstays there on the offensive line, have moved over to different teams. They did bring in Trevon Tate, who was a big part of that Argos O-line this past season. But I think that's a spot where if I'm Calgary, I'm looking to get some more offensive line depth there for my team. Any thoughts on Calgary here for you guys, Trey?
Well, I mean, this isn't Curtis Rourke's draft year, is it? Because they sure need a quarterback. But other than that, I guess offensive line. I don't know. I think Calgary is one of those teams that they need a lot of duct tape and Gorilla Glue, and I think the Canadian draft isn't exactly going to fix everything that they got going wrong. So best play, but where's the best place to start when you're one of those teams that need to fix everything? Probably the offensive line, Adam.
Yeah, I think for them it's been the offensive line for a little while. Seems like they can run the football okay, but that was about it last year that we seen. It did not look good for most of the season for Jake Mayer, just because I think felt like he was under pressure all the time. Their offensive line again lost some pieces during the free agency this year. I think that they need to rebuild that. They haven't really had a dominating center in Calgary for a very long time, maybe since the gentleman from Weyburn, Brett Jones, has been there essentially. I'd like to see him get a really good center in the offensive line. Right now, some of the mock drafts had down Kyle Hurdle, I think is the name. He isn't a center, but you know what? He might just fill in and to be a pretty good guy. Played in Boston College. He's played some good professional football. College football, I should say. I think that's probably where you got to go, Trey. You're right. His offensive line and start building that up again in Calgary.
And I think for the other, they've got, again, those 2 picks in the second round. I think the defensive line is another spot that, just looking at the roster here isn't screaming a ton of depth on the defensive line in terms of Canadians there. No huge names, mainstay names on that crew there. I think other defensive positions. One spot, much like the Riders, I definitely don't think they should look towards with those first 3 picks is at wide receiver, because this team's got a lot of Canadian wide receivers with potential talent. They really invested in that spot last year in the draft with Clark Barnes, Cole Tucker in that draft. They've got Jalen Philpott. I haven't heard really on his injury. I'm hoping we see him back this year because he was exciting to watch. So they've got some of that Canadian receiver talent and maybe some of the best depth in the league if those guys develop into the types of players they were hoping for when they picked them for the Stamps. Number 5 on the draft board is the Toronto Argonauts, who did make that trade with Hamilton to move up to number 5. Interestingly, no picks in the second round, but 3 picks almost back-to-back in round 3, 24, 25, and 27. So the Argos are going to have a chance in the third round to go on a bit of a run there and really scoop up whoever they want on that's left on the board at that point. Nothing in round 4, 2 in round 5, 2 in round 6, nothing in 7, and 1 in 8. So the Argos are a bit, they're not boring. At least they've done some wheeling and dealing here. Is it hard to figure out what the Argos should do given the question marks around the team right now, or do you think that impacts things at all, Trey?
I would say no, because it doesn't seem like there's a top-tiered quarterback, and that's kind of the biggest question mark they might have. Other than that, I think it's going to be business as usual, regardless if it's Kelly or Cameron Dukes, right? The other positions, they lost the running back. Again, I don't see them going out and getting a Canadian one right now. But I think they have to shore up that defense a little bit, and that's somewhere I would definitely look at them.
Yeah, I would almost say receiver, just because they did lose a big piece in Gurley Gittins Jr. My opinion is, if you're the Toronto Argonauts, you got a few holes to fill. Take the best player available. Unless you know he's getting a full shot at the NFL and he's going to get drafted, and he does get drafted in the NFL. Otherwise, take the best player available at this point. You got other picks. You got lots of picks later on. You can do some strategizing, picking other players. By the time you get to the 6th or 7th player selected in the CFL draft, sometimes it's a matter of just who's the best athlete. As much as it sounds crazy, I think Toronto's needs, again, are linebacker. I think they need some wide receiver. I think they need some other players. I think that, like I said, they could use some offensive line. That got picked apart a little bit. I think they need some players, just plain and simple. So whoever's the best player, sign them up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they're a team that has pretty good depth, and they did lose some of that this offseason, and we knew they were going to, and I think that's why you guys mentioned the defensive side of the ball there, right? Is that's where they got hurt the most, so I totally get that. At wide receiver, you touched on it a little bit there. The interesting thing for me with receiver is Toronto's a team that's going to start 2 Canadians, presumably, right? They did last year, at least, a lot of the times at wide receiver. They've got some pretty good depth of their own there. Deshaun Brissett was a mainstay starter. Tommy Neal showed some good moments last year. David Unger, the third, kind of had a little bit of a breakout here and there. And they brought in Richie Sindani late in the season, who made a bit of an impact. They've got 4 solid Canadian receivers already. What happens when those guys goes down if you're banking on that, those being some of your Canadian slots? So maybe you pick a receiver at that position. Shane Ryan, the X chat. I didn't know comments from X came into here. This is the first time that's gotten working. Look at Elon doing something over there. I guess to make that work. We've never had that before. Or I thought they were disabled previously, but that's awesome. Saying Luke Brobacker at number 5 for the Argos. You guys know anything about Luke Brobacker? Defensive lineman out of Wilfrid Laurier, it looks like.
Yeah, 6'6", 255 pounds. Had, I think, 13 sacks last season, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just take a look once more. 6 sacks, actually, last season. 13 tackles, 12 were solos. Looks like some pretty fair stats, I think. Definitely got the size to be a pretty good CFL player. Be interesting to see how he does in the draft. I think he probably is second round pick somewhere there. Just depending on if teams pick for need or pick for athlete. If they're picking athlete, yeah, Luke Brobacher might not be a bad one.
I was just looking at the player heights on the Argos defensive line. Do you know Sean Oakman is 6'9"? Holy jeez.
Wow. I did not realize he was 6'9".
There aren't many players that, if we're standing at the same ground level, I would have to look up to. But yeah, that looking straight up.
Yeah, I'd be looking pretty much straight up and probably seeing mostly his hips.
I have no idea how tall you are, Adam. We've never met in person. I don't even know if you have legs. So,
yeah, fair enough. I'm cool.
Oh wait, no, we had Adam on the couch for the podcast. We've seen Adam's legs.
Yeah, they can confirm they do exist.
They do exist.
Yeah. I 5'10", Adam? 5'8", 5'9", somewhere in there.
5'10", 5'10".
5'10", yeah.
Yeah, I'm the shortest in the podcast. I'm the oldest in the podcast. It's.
I don't think Mike's 5'10". Maybe he is.
Yeah, you're probably similar.
Me and Mike probably pretty close.
Trey and I are pretty similar in height as well.
Yeah, I know Trey was a little taller than I was.
Oh, I'm still growing. Eating my veggies, boys.
It's good for you.
Can I help you? Sorry, the wife was out here when I said something stupid, like always.
All right. Anything else on the Argos, or should we move on to number 6? Interestingly, the Argos, I feel like are just, I guess, one last thought is the Argos are a team that I feel like are one of those teams that's more likely to take a shot at an NFL name at some point. That's going to, probably not come to the CFL, but if he does, that's going to be a big name talent. 3 picks in, what was it, the second round or the third round there. 3 picks so close together in the third round is a perfect opportunity, in my opinion, for a team with a lot of depth to take a shot or two at a big name, because you could probably afford, if they're not coming to play for you this year or next year potentially, but if you land it, obviously that's going to be a big play. So the Argos are my current leading favorite to be a team to take a chance on something like that. Where's my tab with the draft order? There it is. It's the BC Lions up next at number 6 on the draft board. The Lions pick at 6, 15, 19, so 2 picks in the second round, 1 in the third, nothing in the fourth, 1 in the fifth, 1 in the sixth, 1 in the 7th, and 1 in the 8th there for the BC Lions. So close the last 2 years the Lions did The Lions were, I should say, to get into the Grey Cup. Strong seasons, but couldn't get past Winnipeg there. They are one of the two teams, the other being Winnipeg, that get a bonus pick in the second round for having the most snaps played by Canadians this season. So I think that's flawed. I think that's a flawed process that the team who presumably has the best Canadian depth now gets an extra Canadian draft pick. Conveniently, going back to our previous discussion, also the team that went $85,000 over the cap and maybe brought in an extra Canadian to play, but
it wasn't the Bombers.
I know, but I missed out on that part of the conversation because I wanted to.
We were very much in tune with what you've been saying all along. That this is it's a soft cap and you should go over it. But I did see some talk about if you can go over it, and then and you're getting rewarded a draft pick for the most Canadian snaps. That maybe that's like the one thing that's a question mark to me is the whole draft pick system, which I find is flawed to begin with.
That's fair.
But what do you guys think about BC, Adam?
I think that they probably, again, by this point, you take athlete, but if BC does have any need, it's maybe on the defensive secondary a little bit. They probably could use another defender out there that can get somebody going. Other than that, there's really not much that the BC Lions are really in desperate need of in Canadian that I can see. But to me, like I said, it depends what's available and what's all open. If there's somebody that's kind of been dropping for some reason and now all of a sudden he's available, may as well take him. Or, like I said, defensive back might be not a bad option. Trey, what do you think?
No, I kind of agree. Take the best man up. Kind of thing there. Maybe again, do you go offensive line because they do kind of have a heavy Canadian line, and I guess you need depth for that, right? They have Suk Chung, a couple other names I'm blanking on right now, but maybe that. Couture. Yeah, that's what I mean. So when you have a bunch of Canadian depth at O line, you kind of need the Canadian starters. You need the depth, but other than that, best man up. I don't know what else because that team's one step away, right? They didn't really lose a ton, but they also they lost a receiver, but again, a Canadian draft's not going to replace. My mind's all over the place today. What's the name of the receiver that they just lost?
To injury?
No, to Ottawa. Well, they lost Hatcher to injury, and then someone go to Ottawa.
Dominic Rhymes.
Dominic Rhymes again, but the Canadian draft isn't going to exactly overly help with that. But yeah, we'll see.
But you do look at the Canadian draft, and similarly to what we just said with Toronto, and I mean, there's not a ton of positions if you think about it to talk about here, where we're probably saying offensive line, receiver, or take something on defense for all of these teams. But BC was able to get rid of Rhymes and let Whitehead go, and suffer the loss of Hatcher for most of the season because of some of their strong Canadians at receiver, including Justin McInnes and Javon Catoy, who I think are both going to have starting roles. So maybe you need a little bit more depth behind those guys there. Offensive line, those two guys you mentioned, Chung and Couture, are also both in their 30s, and I would say that's their premium offensive line nationals on this team. So how many years do they have left in the tank at that position still? I would agree that offensive line would be a potential spot for me for BC, especially if there's a guy that can maybe come in and slot in right away and be a depth piece and make the team this year, because you've got as good of a shot as anybody to have a run at things this year if you can keep VA upright, right? He is, I had him as my top quarterback coming into this year. I think Adam might have as well, Vernon Adams. So do what you can to keep the guy healthy, right? If we're talking about planning for this year alone, different teams are in more of a need to have their draft picks land this year, of course, for sure, than others. Any other thoughts on the BC Lions here? Going once, going twice. If not, we'll move on to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, picking at number 7 after their trade with Toronto, again at 16 in the second round. Nothing in the third, but 2 picks in the fourth. And then they've got 1 pick in each round the rest of the way there for the Ticats, a team that I feel like is in a bit of a changing of the guard era. The Simone Lawrence retiring on the linebacker. Did Ted Laurent also retire on the defensive line? Let me double check on that.
Well, they lost some old linemen. They lost Christian Van Zyl, but I don't know if they lost Ted Laurent.
I think they did. I don't see him on the roster currently, whether it was let him go or he retired. So, and you mentioned Chris Van Zyl. So this has been an older team for years that is now losing a lot of those pieces. So I think this is one of the teams where draft is kind of maybe a little bit crucial. And I don't know how much success they've had with the draft over the years, right? Like, especially those years where they had the first overall pick. I still remember the Mark Chapman pick as number 1 wide receiver who didn't pan out in the CFL. They've probably, to their credit, had more good picks since then. I don't have obviously all of their draft picks memorized off the top of my head, but Hamilton, I feel like they need a good draft this year. So where do you put the focus if you're the Ticats here, Adam?
I look at their offense. It's probably their biggest concern, and I still think they got a lot of concern in Canadian receivers, to be honest with you. I look at the depth. It's not really there. I mean, you've got the one guy that came originally from Calgary. Sorry, I can't remember names right off the top of my head.
Luther Hakunavanu.
No, they got Luther Hakunavanu, but they also had a different guy I was thinking of as well. That was there for a year or two. He was over to Hamilton already from last year, and he was expected to do some pretty big things. He got injured right away, and he's always been injured quite a bit. So
Richie Sandani?
No, there's somebody else. I'll go look up the name right now while I'm talking to you guys. But I think they really could use some more depth in Canadian wide receiver. And so, yeah, it depends who's available, but there's got to be a good wide receiver available. You might even want to look from a guy from the University of Regina. Stephen Mims, I believe his name is. He kind of has a touch of history with both the Riders and the Bombers. His dad did anyways. So I think, might not be a bad idea to bring Mims into Hamilton. Trey, what do you think?
No, I kind of agree. The offensive side is kind of the way you want to go. I see what Ryan's saying with the defense, though, as well. Again, Hamilton's this team that I don't think the Canadian draft is going to be enough of duct tape to put on the broken pipe right now, but I guess you have to start somewhere. See, when you start getting to this point of the draft, where we at, like, 6, 7 right now, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, 7. I don't know, man. Like, in the Canadian draft, again, no disrespect to these guys, you kind of start getting to the point where 5 to 20 might be kind of interchangeable on teams' needs sometimes. So, I mean, if one of those top receivers that we were talking about, Mardner or a couple other guys, fall down this far, that might be something for Hamilton to look at. And again, you might just have to take the best guy available, because I don't know if they really do they want to go pick a receiver, who's slotted to go second round just to make sure you get him, or do you take the best player available, right? So I would go that route.
Yeah, it depends who's available. It was Deshaun Mims as well, not Steven Mims. So my apologies.
Did you figure out who that former Calgary receiver was yet?
Not yet. Give me 1 second here.
All right, keep looking at him.
Yeah, I was running around listening over to Trey. So
I gotta go defense though for Hamilton still, because of all those pieces they lost. I mean, Simone Lawrence, Jameer Thurman, another huge loss to the linebacker position. At defensive back, you had like Tunde Adeleke, Chris Edwards among the crew there that they've lost this year. Dylan Wynn, Malik Carney on the defensive line, Ted Laurent as well. So they've lost some solid pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And if I look at that linebacker depth for the Ticats right now, I think they look a little thin at linebacker, and also they're very heavily Canadian at the linebacker position. So, if you have a game breaker available here at 7, potentially, do you go that route? If you're going to be playing Canadians there, you want more depth there if you're Hamilton, but they do have some depth there already. I like the defensive side of the ball a little more if I'm them. I like their Canadian receiver depth that they have right now. Keandre Smith, Tyler Ternowski, are the mainstays from last year. And now they bring in Brendan O'Leary, Orange, over from the Bombers. Big fan of his. Hoping he gets a regular role in that offense. And Luther Hakunavanu over from Calgary there. So I like what they brought in for Canadian receiver depth. I think they might need more receiver depth in general. So maybe that's worth taking a receiver here. But I think my focus is on out with the old, out with the old, in with the new on the defensive side of the ball for the new era of the Hamilton Tiger Cats here. Anything else on Hamilton? You find the name? If not, we're moving on and it'll be lost forever.
Let me look one more second here. I'm just
trying if you going once, going twice, if you think about it later, you're never allowed to mention it again. No, I'm just kidding. Let us know later.
Ouch. I'm just
you missed your window. You missed your window.
I know. I'm terrible at this. Receivers, where am I looking here?
I don't know. I honestly don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I gotta look here in the 1-game injured list. Was he in the 6-game injured list?
There's not a receiver on Hamilton besides Luther Hakunavanu that I know of that previously played for Calgary. So
yeah, there's a name that I'm thinking of that I just cannot remember for the life of me.
All right.
I will go to the 2022 season. I have to.
It's going to come out during Beyond the Countdown later on. Just wait.
Absolutely. So you got to follow the Beyond the Countdown. Just see the name.
There you go. All right. Winnipeg, number 8 on the draft board. Second, they're the other team other than BC that gets that bonus pick at the end of round 2. They had the most snaps. I guess the second most because BC probably got the higher pick. BC has the earlier pick, so I guess they had the most. But Winnipeg's got 2 picks in round 2, 2 again in round 5, and they've got a pick in every other round here for Winnipeg so far. Trey, as soon as you're, I'll give you a second there. What are you thinking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here? I think I know what direction you're probably going, but let's see if I'm right.
Sorry, guys. I'm just crushing some spicy junior chickens from McDonald's, man. That's what the wife brought over to me. Those are so good on the remix menu, man. Worst commercial I've ever seen. Best food so far. The chicken cheeseburger, my kid had it. That was disgusting. That was the most. I never had a bite, but the most. It's a burger and a piece of chicken on a cheeseburger. Most disgusting thing I can ever.
I tried the fish and the chicken or the cheeseburger. Yeah. That was weird.
Oh, but the spicy.
But the sweet chili one. Oh, that's crazy.
I could eat 20 of those, man.
Okay, but we're getting off of it.
Yeah. This is for the after hours, I guess. But well, now I got to know. I got to think. I got to come up with something different that Ryan thinks I'm doing, or what? But
you don't.
I got to go with the offensive line because it is just so brutal. And again, I don't think you're going to fix the Swiss cheese defense of Winnipeg in the Canadian draft. So I got to go with the offensive line. They lost a couple key pieces. They've lost an age. They're getting up there in age too with we kept Bryant, right? Hardrick went to Saskatchewan, right? So, Bryant's getting up there in age. You got to go offensive line. If anything, like I said, you need, if not offensive line, you need a top-tier Canadian defense. So we're not giving up those stupid, 40-yard plays to lose a Grey Cup, right? That's my bottom line. Ryan, how good do you know me?
There was no doubt in my mind you were going to the offensive line there. I know you've harped on it a lot as your biggest concern about this team. So that makes
sense. In the Swiss cheese defense. That's all it is, man. And but you know what? Maybe the new turf that they installed today, maybe it'll help. Who knows? It'll be like MetLife Field. It just gives every player injuries.
Oh God. Or the Calgary Stampeders or McMahon Stadium, which has had its own fair share. I'm in agreement with you. The Bombers seem to like going to the offensive line and have some success on the offensive line in the draft. So don't think they need to pick a running back. I'll say that.
I'm going to just argue with you guys and go on the other side of the trenches. I'm going to go with defensive line. Willie Jefferson's getting older. Jeff Coat retired. I think he's still got a little bit of depth in the D line, but I think that they could use a good Canadian in there. And there is one really good one that I can see that nobody's talked about yet. And he kind of, I don't know why he's lost his draft stock so much. Daniel Okpoko, San Diego State player. But here's the kicker. He's from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So, all the good players come out of Saskatchewan at one time. So Winnipeg could use them, and I know how much they love their Saskatchewan players out in Winnipeg, especially Saskatoon ones like Patrick Newfield.
Hey, it's worked out for them. I know that's a good point on the defensive line because the mainstay token Canadian filling on the defensive line for the past, 10, 12 years now has been Jake Thomas, who's back again for another year. But how many more one-year contracts is Jake Thomas going to play with the Bombers, right? I think it was last year or the year before they did bring in Anthony. They drafted Anthony Bennett at that position. Maybe he gets more of a role. Cam Lawson we saw at times last year. But yeah, the Canadian talent on the defensive line is thin, and they do have a bit of an overhaul at that position this year. I like that. Build it up in the trenches.
This is international, but with the Hansen, was he D-line too? Because he's gone.
He would.
Yeah, so that even in general, that's another big missing point there too. When's the international draft? Do we still have that? Is that still
I think that's like the day before.
Oh,
I think it happens at like 11 a.m. or something like that.
Okay. Wasn't sure if it was still a thing to be honest. So
I think it is. We'll look that up. Also lost Ricky Walker on the defensive line, who was a piece last year. And on the O-line, a piece we didn't mention was Jeff Gray, who I don't think has re-signed with the team.
See, if I'm just going to say one more point on the Bombers, the one thing I think haven't lost faith in is that defensive line, because Jefferson and Big Hill, they might look slow some days, but then they come up the next, right? It's very hard for me to think that they're sure, they need depth, but I would rather go O-line or secondary before I go with that D-line. But I don't know. Hey, I saw Willie a couple weeks ago, man. He looks still pretty mean to me, man. So he's fine.
All I could say is Father Time is undefeated, no matter who it is. If it's Willie Jefferson or Adam Big Hill.
They got one loss against Tom Brady, man, because he's going to make a comeback this year, guaranteed. Guaranteed. I think he's going to go with the team he owns in Oakland, man, or Vegas.
Did you see Netflix is doing the first ever live streaming service roast, and it's of Tom Brady?
The roasts are the best. If there's it better be Jeff Ross, right? He is the best. He only comes out of his cave once a year for the roast, and it's the best thing I've ever seen. But anyway, I'll watch that.
Yeah, that's going to be good. Global Draft is the same day, by the way. And I was right. It is at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Hit the nail on the head with that one. There we go.
Take the day off. Watch the whole draft of the CFL. You're the only guy probably that ever do that unless you're actually a broadcaster.
Is it even on TV this year?
The draft in the evening is, again, like last year. I think they do the first 2 rounds on TV, and then it goes to tsn.ca afterwards for rapid fire through the last round. I enjoyed watching that actually last year, and if I have time, I might watch it again. We'll see what the day looks like for myself. Last team to talk about here. Boy, this is going to be a long one if we're doing after hours yet. Montreal, the Montreal Alouettes, they won the Grey Cup, which means they are picking at 9th overall. No pick in the second round for them, but I think they have a pick every other round. They pick last in every other round. What do you do to build up for the repeat here if you're the Montreal Alouettes, Trey?
I guess defense a little bit, because that's the kind of the pieces that they've missed, and you got to get a guy who doesn't know how to gamble on football for one. But yeah, I guess you'd go defense if I was them. They didn't really lose a lot anywhere, other than a couple of one retirement. In all seriousness, retirement on defense, a big hole in Sean Lemon, regardless of the other stuff, and a couple. I think I'd go defense. Maybe again again, maybe this is one team where I'm maybe you go with the long shot pick if there is a guy, that might get cut in September or next year. But, but maybe with it not having a second round pick, maybe you hold on to that as well. Adam?
Yeah, I look at this team, and they lost a little bit of wide receiver with Hergy Mayala moving on, but it wasn't a big loss for him, I don't think. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is the CFL draft. pick the best player available. Montreal's got a little bit of depth in most positions. I think they can get away. If any team can get away with it, it's the Alouettes. I agree with you though, Trey. On defensive side of the football, maybe they could probably use somebody that doesn't know how to count up to 22. Or no, sorry, that's different. That's gambling, not betting. Anyways, I think that they could probably use a depth piece in defense. But if they get a depth receiver or they get something else or something they can build around, all good. As long as the guy's an athlete, he's going to be a guy that they can go towards the future with. Alouettes will make a good pick.
This team's got some real good Canadian talent on it. Like I look at wide receiver Tyson Philpott. We're all projecting big season to come for him. Kion Julian Grant was having a real good year until he got injured last year. We saw a couple other guys mix in and out of the lineup there. That maybe they could use another depth piece if they want to get those two guys kind of regular pieces of the offense this year and see some depth at that position. They could be one of the few teams starting a Canadian running back this year with Jeshurun Antwi, so that might play into their ratio. They're heavily Canadian on the offensive line. They've got the depth on the defensive side as well. You talk about maybe bringing in Canadians on the defensive line. Well, they did in free agency. They took two of them from Calgary, and Derek Wigan and Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, who are two mainstays on that or two big pieces of that Calgary D line, are both Canadian, and now they're in Montreal. And they've had some of those earlier draft picks, like the one we were talking about earlier with Tyrell Richards at the linebacker position. So, yeah. Montreal's a team that's only they're going to get better from the draft by just getting more and more depth across the board. I don't think there's a certain spot I pinpoint for them that I think is exactly where this team needs to go. And that's where we're at with the Montreal Alouettes here. Why? I'm looking at all these mock drafts, and you know what? I was looking in round 2. I'm like, where's Montreal's pick? There we go. That's why. Looking at the mock drafts, seems to be defensive line, offensive line. I mean, any of these positions where you're starting a bunch of Canadians doesn't hurt to get that Canadian depth for these teams. So this is kind of what we see each of these teams doing on draft day on April 30th. Obviously, this is pretty generic, pretty high level, but hopefully gives some insight into some holes that we think might be there or where teams can build up some of this depth. And once again, make sure you go check out CFL.ca mock drafts from Marshall Ferguson and 3downnation.com mock drafts from John Hodge for more insight into some of the players available for these teams at these positions. Anything else CFL related here you guys want to mention? Anything draft, non-draft related?
Just quit bitching about the soft cap. That's it. That's my one thing. That's the one thing. I didn't get my 5 minutes to rant about that too. So LTIR and the soft cap, they're in the CBA. They're in the CBA. Get over it. You know what I mean? It's like if you're unhappy about something, go talk to your local MP, right? If you're unhappy, go talk to the player rep. Go talk to the owners and say, hey, change it. But I don't think they're going to if they both agree on it, right? So let it go.
Franklin goes over the CFL soft cap. To follow that meme about the long-term injury
man. I've watched Franklin over the last few months, so it's just.
Oh, hey, me too.
Oh, man,
Adam, you too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just on the combine out there in the fields. It's a great show. Check it out. Anything else for you, CFL related, Adam?
No, not really. Hopefully lots of these guys here will get their chance to play some pro football that deserve their opportunity to put a lot of time and effort into it. Hopefully they get a good shot at it. If they don't get drafted, I hope maybe some of them get onto a walk-on and prove that they could still beat some of these guys and go in and try out and get an opportunity some other way. But, always fun watching the CFL draft just because, you get to hear some of these schools mentioned that don't maybe get a lot of exposure, like, again, the U of S or the U of R or Wilfrid Laurier. I know they get lots from usually Dwayne Ford, but there's other ones as well that are just great football centers. Hopefully you get out there and watch some of these games because they're pretty fun to watch. And yeah, that's how you see the future stars.
Couldn't have said it better myself if I tried. All right, let's once again, we'll get into wrapping up the CFL show here, and y'all get to stick around for a little bit, chat a little more random sports stuff for a few minutes here after we wrap things up. Okay. So thanks y'all, everybody, for tuning in. CFL draft preview so far here today, and we're looking forward to the draft on Tuesday once again. Join the Discord community. Link in the episode description. We'll have, I'm sure, some draft chatter going on in the CFL channel over there in our Discord community. Link in the episode description. Join that. Next week, we'll recap the draft, talk about what each of the teams did. Once again, at probably a pretty high level there. And then we're going to get into season preview content going forward there as well. Follow us over on social media. We are on X at CF Countdown Pod and Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. You can find the show there. Check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network as well at CF Pod Network on Twitter. And the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter or alternativefootballnetwork.com. UFL season still going on. Make sure you check out all the other great content going on over there. I didn't see any 60-plus yard field goals this week, though, and I don't think. But the season is ongoing nonetheless. You can find me on X at CooperTrooper42. Maybe one day I'll change this slide to actually say X instead of Twitter. We'll see. I'm just waiting for Elon to change it back. Mike is still MIA. Rumors have it he'll be back in the preseason. But you can find him at Mike Garrell on X. Trey, where can people find you?
You can find me on the X at Trey Harness Link. If you want horse racing, USC, football, baseball, everything, find me there. I'm so tired right now, guys. Let's just go.
You don't have to stick around.
I got horse racing stuff to do, so I'll work in the background here, and we'll talk some stuff. I like talking to you guys about other stuff.
Sounds good. Adam, where can people find everything you've got going on? And reminders that green is, in fact, the color.
Yep, green is the color. Football is the game. Trey Colbeck's team lost last night. So
you know what? When they lose, they're not my team. Okay, when they lose, I said all year they were garbage. When they win, I said all year they were the best.
Calling the Jets Trey's team is very loose. Okay,
my favorite hockey team is the one probably from Shorzy. That's about, or the one from Goon. That's about it.
So in other words, the two fake hockey teams that don't exist.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the one from Utah that doesn't have a name yet.
Honestly, well, I mean, they're the official rights holders to Jets 1.0 history now, so I guess so.
Yeah.
And the whiteout, right? So they are the official holders of that. So,
nevertheless, you can find me at Adam Stewart 1, usually trying to mock Trey with a GIF or something on X right now because I don't know why we have any GIF wars, but we do for some reason. Or you can go over and check out probably my newly polished tractor. It'll be over on X eventually when I get it all finished up. And of course, there'll be lots of seeding harvests. Seeding pictures, farm pictures, filling up the air drills pictures, happening probably after next week because we'll be starting in the field. So, yeah, all that good stuff you can find over at the X, or you can find me at Instagram or Facebook or wherever your favorite social media platform is.
Right on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. We appreciate it if you do the fun things like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. If you're watching on the live podcast feeds, you will see the closing thanks for watching video playing here in a second, but stick around afterwards. The stream won't end. We'll still be here. We'll still be talking. What we'll be talking about, who knows? Random stuff, I'm sure, sports related or maybe even non-sports related. So stick around for that. And if you are listening to the audio feeds and want to go check that out after the fact, well, you can find the link to the YouTube video always there as well. On behalf of Adam and Trey, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye. We're back for CFC Beyond the Countdown, CFC After Hours. What are we calling this thing, guys? That's the first topic. What's the name?
CFL Nonsense or CFC Nonsense Hour?
Something like that. I don't know, man.
The CFC Variety Hour. That might actually be a pretty good name.
First of all, shout out! I got I got this idea from the folks over at the Turf District. They do overtime after their show on YouTube all the time. There, I've seen as well. So did get that idea a little bit from them, but mostly just wanted to keep the actual podcast feed focused on kind of the CFL content. Keep that a little bit shorter. Although we still went an hour and 20 minutes. Geez.
We always try to make it an hour and 30, no matter what we do. It's got to be an hour and 30. It's kind of like the unwritten rule.
We want to be consistent for everybody who's betting on the on the podcast.
On a side note, I did find that player's name. It was Lamar Durant that I was thinking.
Oh, okay. I'm glad people stuck around for After Hours then.
I said I was going to bring it up. I had to find it, and I didn't find it. So.
Fun fact, Lamar Durant, and speaking about Lamar Durant, what was it, just the end of last month was your guys' 2-year anniversary for the podcast, yep. And Adam's little intro interview, we played a game called Name That CFL Player, and the player was Lamar Durant.
Yep.
You could name him 2 years ago, you could not
do
it.
I'm in a here and now era, okay? Let's get this serious.
That's your current era.
That was a great era. Except now it's now.
What other sports stuff, you guys? What's going on in the sports world? Hockey playoffs going on. Watching a lot of that.
Yeah.
Oilers 3-3 with the Kings right now.
Spoiler.
And then Vegas 2-1. If anyone's interested. We're not talking sports. We're not talking sports. Right? I was like,
talk about it.
Really,
holy man! Like,
how many people are really upset with Vegas? Like, come on, really?
It's in the rules. A lot of
people like just with pitchforks?
They're not going to get rid of it when the player, because it benefits Mark Stone because he's probably got some playoff bonuses in his contract. It benefits the team. Why would they get rid of it? And any team can use it.
The fan, and the fan really, again, they're selling the rink out in Vegas. They don't care how they do it.
No, 31 other fan bases are going to get that mad, but then every year it's a different team that does it.
Yeah, like Tampa used to do it all the time.
Oh.
That's why
we were great at it.
Yeah, you guys were great at it.
That's dumb. If it's in the CBA, I don't want to hear you complaining about it. Like, it's.
If anything, if you can successfully pull this off, like GM of the Year award, like the way you managed the cap. It was a couple of years ago. Tampa managed the cap like so ridiculously that they brought in like Brent Seabrook, who hadn't played in like 3 years. And I think they were like $1 under the cap or something like that.
Well, even my Avalanche are doing it this year. I mean, you can't tell me they got Zach Parise for free. I mean, come on.
He did score the other day, didn't he?
And he did score the other night. I was like, he still exists. I didn't even realize he was still on the team.
Yeah.
Remember when he signed like a 13-year, like crazy Remember the era of like
Minnesota
13-year contract?
Yeah.
The Ilya Kovalchuk contract situation.
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
That's the only plus side of kind of like the new things. Like, I think NHL should go to a soft cap too. Almost every league has it. It's the only one that does it. And then maybe you kind of get rid of these people being mad about Mark Stone. and what all these things. If there's a soft cap, just say you got to pay a little fine for going over in the playoffs.
Yeah, but like I said in the podcast earlier, if don't matter what would happen, there's still going to be somebody whining because they're over the cap. There's always those.
There was somebody whining about there being a jet flyover at the whiteout game 1 on Twitter. I saw that. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, people everything to complain about these days. So,
people are whining because the guy was wearing a Savage shirt to a whiteout.
Let him wear what he wants. Oh, big hit there. Sorry, I got the game on. Someone got hit.
It's okay. It's after hours.
Oh, man. Then, baseball, the Jays, they lost today. Again, shocker.
They're KC right now?
Yeah.
KC's not that good. Like, you shouldn't lose to KC.
I think they lost. They were losing last time I checked. I can't imagine they came back.
Yeah. They're not really much of a rally.
Well, they lost They lost back-to-back 3-2 both days. Game 1 and 2 against them. And they had their new pitcher, Rodriguez, start today, and they had another call-up start today. So they're kind of doing the call-ups already, which is not a good sign. But
so which is the series? Which is the real series that everybody's following closest in NHL?
NHL?
Oh, I was just gonna say before we, when you guys started talking baseball, to peel back the curtain a little bit. This is usually the part post-show where I tune these guys out and start editing when they start talking baseball.
Hockey? I really want Toronto to lose, so that's the score I probably check the most because I know Mike doesn't have a horse in the race, but his horse is getting beaten up right now. Getting to the glue factory, honestly, with the Leafs. But other than that, I mean, the Jets Avalanche has been a lot of goals, and it's kind of been exciting that way. The East, I always thought. McAvee's in it too. I always seem to get lost in the East. You know what I mean? All those teams from New York to Pittsburgh, and they're like 2-hour drive. It's like it's all the one team playing each other. I seem to get lost in that a little bit. In Tampa, Florida, I mean, good for Florida. Like that they have a rivalry in the playoffs, I guess.
Well, at least they won 2 games this year in the playoffs.
Oh man, I needed them to win in overtime the other day, man. I needed Tampa, and I was thinking the whole time Ryan's team needs to pull one off for me here, but
we're just giving them a chance. 16-2 finish to the playoffs, still pretty good. So,
Bobrovsky, he's on the case.
But I think any of the 3 Western Canadian teams have a pretty decent shot. I mean, I'm not a fan of having to play Vegas second round for either Colorado or Winnipeg. But I mean, if Edmonton and Vancouver win, then there's guaranteed a Canadian team in the West Conference final.
Is Vancouver going to be able to make it through, though, now that isn't their goalie injured for
Patrick Demko's out? I don't see Casey DeSmith making it through the Predators. I mean, I'd love to see it, but no.
Yeah, Predators are another tough team. They win 17 in a row at some point this year, and something stupid like that, or didn't lose for a long time. What's on tomorrow?
I'm sure it'll be Colorado.
Yeah, there's 2 games tomorrow: Panthers, Lightning, and Hurricane Islanders. Colorado, Winnipeg's not till Friday.
Oh.
Yeah, they got 2 days off of the travel. Yeah,
that Hurricane Islanders series, boy. Islanders were up 3-0 in the second. I'm like, this is over. Patrick Waugh's got the biggest smile on his face ever. All of a sudden, the Hurricane just comes storming back.
2 goals in 9 seconds, right?
I know. It was 12 seconds. Yeah.
No, I think Carolina or Florida are kind of my teams in the East right now. I think that whoever wins in that next round.
I made a severe mistake this year when I was doing my drafts. The top, the East finalists, I had Toronto and Carolina.
See, I don't know. Toronto, every year I get that where they can't beat anybody, let alone Boston. But I'm like, it has to be one point.
It's got to happen sometime.
It has to be one year it happens. Right? And I just don't know what year that's going to be.
Yeah. And then on the other side, I had Edmonton, Colorado.
See, I think Edmonton's good. I think they got a decent first round matchup. If they win this, they're up 2-0. And I can't imagine.
LA's not going to come back.
What a save. Oh my God, it's tough. Oh, Edmonton's on the power play, and McDavid, I think it was, almost had an open. Was that not McDavid? Someone almost had an open cage, and Talbot closed the door.
Former Edmonton Oiler, Cam Talbot. I love
Maybe,
how
it's all over the net. Oh, Talbot. I mean, yeah, Talbot. A no look pass by McDavid to Draisaitl. That's what it was.
That's pretty good.
Jeez. And a big
Did you ever
save.
see that save of Bobrovsky's the other day?
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Behind the back, and you got to turn your glove sideways. And somehow I made the save. I was like, what?
Oh, goalies are ridiculous too, man. Like
As somebody who played goalie for like 10 years at least in soccer, which is obviously a lot different. I know there's a lot of times where you're just flopping around and hoping you get a piece of it, right? Like
I've seen TikToks of like moving to soccer of like professional soccer goalies, and the drills they have to do, they'll like line up balls and stuff, so they get those crazy deflect like and kick it at you, and you got to try to save all like every ball that comes towards you. You got to try to save it, and they're all coming at it like they're wild, those guys, and the gymnastics you need from going from one of those bars to the other bar. Oh man.
My goaltending career ended in grade 3 when I decided in floor hockey that one kid needed to wear the goalie stick, and I tried to Ron Hextall. That was the end of my goaltending career.
If I go back
and with 20 seconds left, my sister scored on me to win against me. That ended it too, maybe a little, but mainly the slash.
If I go back in time, I think I'd be a soccer goalie. It was the position I always wanted to go at recess, and like I know what I mean. It was just so much fun, and you're right. The net's so big, but you don't have the same amount of opportunities. Right? There's not 40 shots a game like in hockey. You might honestly have 5 or 6 good scoring chances on you, and then the penalty kicks, man. When you're watching like the World Cup and the penalty kicks, that would just be so much. Like it'd be so stressful, but it'd be so much fun.
Oh, I saw. Those nets in soccer. I mean, growing up, right? You're playing like kids soccer and stuff. You play on the smaller fields; it's a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
And if you play indoor soccer, where the indoor soccer fields or arenas, a lot of them, still had smaller nets there as well for quite a while. And it's like that's always manageable, but once you hit the big fields, it's like if somebody shoots the ball, like, am I really going to save it? Am I really just an extra member here on the team, and I might get lucky here and there. It's tough. I forget who it is. I feel like I saw a video recently of a player in soccer who basically just broke penalty kicks by lining up to take the shot. Goalie dives, and he just stops before kicking and then dumps it into the other side of the net.
Yeah. Because you can almost do anything you want, kicking it off as long as you don't touch the ball, right? You guys watching any good TV shows lately?
Nah, I've been busy in the field or busy polishing a tractor, so.
I'm always watching everything reality TV going on.
Yeah, like what is this new Deal or No Deal island? Is that what is that? It's just Deal or No Deal on an island. Like seriously?
Dondi, Deal or No Deal Island. I haven't actually watched that one, but I know Boston Rob from Survivor is on it. I've seen that. So.
What a guy to have on it, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's the usual Survivor, Big Brother. The Circle on Netflix started up again for season 6. You guys ever heard of The Circle?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's like where they're all in separate rooms in an apartment, and the only like social gameplay is through like basically an online chat room or whatever. They have an AI player playing this season where it is an artificial chatbot playing against all of the people, like using like Chat GPT style AI. So that's interesting to see the AI kick everyone's butts. But
the show I've been kind of watching just and off and on has been that new Amazon Prime kind of a documentary on it's called Saving Sakic. What happened was, I guess, back in the day when the Rangers offered the Joe Sakic like just an absolutely insane offer sheet, and then the Avalanche had to match it, and it was like, well, this is going to bankrupt us practically. So, I mean, they had to go and scramble to get the money to keep Sakic and everything else. It was kind of an interesting little documentary. So.
The offer sheet system in the NHL is so weird. Like, oh, here, I want this guy who doesn't want to sign with your team, but technically, hey, you have the rights for, here, take my four first-round picks for the next 4 years. Like,
Or match my price and you can keep them.
Yeah, see, I understand it to a degree because baseball has that same system too, but it's in every free agent. Like if a free agent gets signed, depending on what their value is, that team that lost them gets a draft pick to replace them. So I kind of understand it because it's to protect. It's to help again because you don't want a guy to leave after 4 years after you drafted him, right? Like it's kind of this problem we have in the CFL. So I get it, but I mean the prices are ridiculous. Like four first round draft picks if it's over 8 or 9 million. Like who's gonna do that? But
actually, Carolina did once.
Well, yeah, but
Montreal
once or twice in the history of it, right? So
yeah. Montreal dropped a lot of curse words that night.
Yeah, it's one of those things that happens so rarely, but then when it does, it's like, oh shoot, we weren't planning for that.
Exactly. What else do we got?
NFL draft this week. Any big NFL draft takes, guys?
Who's going after Justin Williams?
Caleb Williams.
Justin Williams. That's the other guy from the CFL.
No, Justin Williams isn't that the like Mr. Playoff Hockey from the LA Kings? Wasn't that Justin Williams?
Not Justin Williams, but he's a cousin of a guy I played softball with. Justin
Brown, maybe.
Yeah, Justin Williams played for the Hurricanes, the Caps, and the Kings. I thought he played for Detroit at some point. Guy who hardly showed up in the regular season at times, but was always one of the top guys in the playoffs.
Where's this guy from? Justin Williams.
He's Canadian, right?
He's from Ontario. Yeah.
Coburg, Ontario.
Yeah, I remember him. Caleb Williams going to go number 1 to Chicago. That's pretty obvious. Any other draft takes for the NFL draft?
How much does Carolina just hate themselves this weekend?
I don't know, man. The Panthers are so irrelevant, man. They just messed up so bad.
On a side note,
not
Justin Fields deal. The Jets to Denver deal for Zach Wilson. Really? Really? That's the best you can do, Denver.
They don't have to change if he has the same number as Russell Wilson. They don't have to change jerseys, right?
Oh yeah.
Can he say Broncos country? Let's ride.
Yeah, he'll just Everyone who has the jersey doesn't have to change the name, right? It's all good.
I was going to say, if your franchise is struggling that much that you have to trade for a player with the same last name to cut down revenue costs of jerseys, we have a problem.
That, the clear obvious that they look a little different.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
One looks like a competent quarterback at times.
The other one is is Zach Wilson.
I was going to say, it's Russell Wilson. No.
You can argue this one. I mean, Zach Wilson has his moments, and then
I think Russ. I don't know. Maybe Russ can turn it around in Pittsburgh.
No,
I don't. So. I don't care about who goes where, but going through the mock draft, the projected 29th overall pick, his first name is Kool-Aid. That's what it has listed on the draft here. Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, cornerback.
Did they just purposely just change their first name just to sound cool? Like there was one time, what was it, Ha Clinton Dix?
Yeah, and Chad Ochocinco, man. What do you mean?
Oh yeah.
Because what was it? He meant to do Ocho Cinco, but then he filled up the paper wrong and wrote Chad, and then Ocho Cinco is one, or something like that.
Is that what it was?
That was a story I heard somewhere. He messed up the paperwork.
His real name's Chad, wasn't it?
Chad Johnson.
Go back to Chad Johnson.
Yeah, he went back to it after he was Chad Johnson in the CFL for sure.
Edmonton Elks legend.
Was he Montreal?
Yeah, it was Montreal.
No, he's
Was he?
Montreal.
Yeah.
Montreal. Because he got that touchdown at like first game and then he hugs the ref. I can remember that here. Well, I was at the game and he gets a touchdown and hugs the ref.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
I
thought for some reason Edmonton was trying to bring him in.
Maybe.
Or was that somebody else Edmonton was trying to bring in?
Probably.
I'll give him one thing. Every time he pops up on a podcast, he says how great the CFL is.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. He says it's not easy to make it. He said he barely made it. No, Montreal Alouettes, 2014 and 2015, it says on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I thought for some reason Edmonton was after him or something.
Maybe.
Man.
And then in 2017, did he play for a Mexican League team? Oh, Joe Cinco.
He's an international man of mystery. You know, it's amazing how many NFLers actually don't make it in the CFL.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite often.
Yeah. Like they come in here, think that they're going to be just like all-stars, and then they get blown up.
You guys watch any of the UFL stuff, or you still haven't figured out how to watch it yet, Trey?
I got so much stuff going on Saturdays. The last thing I think about watching is the UFL, man, with Jays, UFC, horse racing. It's just Saturdays are just, and kids, man. Oh, I barely have time to
I get it.
I just literally get enough time to turn on the hockey game just to listen to it in the background while I'm working on stuff. I mean,
like the thing I've been watching a lot lately while I work is I've been crushing the Star Wars animated shows. So I finished Clone Wars and I'm on Rebels. I'm gonna get the Bad Batch, and then if I'm done that or bored of that, Roku has South Park for free. So that's what I watch South Park for hours. Or actually, what's a good show that I've really enjoyed on Disney, if you have Disney, Shogun. It's like a Japanese Game of Thrones, and it's actually been really good. It's only supposed to be one season because it's based off a book, and it ends apparently where the book ends. And like it's a crazy show if you want something new.
I checked out that new Fallout show.
Oh, is that on Amazon?
Pretty good. I think so. I think it's Amazon.
Oh yeah,
it's actually pretty good.
I never played the game, but I'm sure
you got to play the game almost first before, otherwise it's kind of weird and doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but Shogun. What else have I been watching? Star Wars, Shogun. No. House of Dragon comeback's on in a couple months. I'm hyped for that. What else is there? Anything new? Nothing new.
I mean, if I need drama, I just watch Canadian politics. Or American politics. I mean, that's more like Law and Order now. So,
have any of you guys seen the Toronto Law and Order? I really want to watch that, but I don't want to like buy whatever it's on. Like, just get it.
Like it's on Prime Video. I think.
But I think you might have to do another subscription or something, and I just don't want to buy it. But I kind of want to watch Law and Order Toronto. Every time I see a commercial for it, I'm like, hey, I've been there. Like, that's the Toronto side. There's the CN Tower.
Oh, yeah.
And then dead body.
I just want to see how they do the because I'm kind of a law nut. I just want to see how they actually do the Canadian law set.
I didn't know you were a law nut.
I just kind of like going and watching like all kind of old court cases and everything.
Did they do like Trailer Park Boys where even the lawyers are wearing the white wigs and stuff still?
Like that. I don't know how it does that.
That's what they had in Trailer. I know, but that's what they had Trailer Park Boys. I thought that the judges and stuff were wearing the wigs, but maybe that. And I was like, this has to be just a Nova Scotia Maritimes thing.
But I want to see how many errors they make. Like, do they say the Crown or do they say the prosecution?
I mean, like, how much they hype up that it's in Toronto? You would think that'd be Canadian. And then apparently they've been doing a lot of international. I thought there was a CSI London or something coming. Or something CSI was like they're trying the and then it was an NCIS Australia. Like they're really pushing this international thing. So you would think they would get it right.
So what they did instead of going and doing the Won't Get Fooled Again, they have the Australian version.
That Land Down Under song, you know. I can picture it in my head. Yeah, because a UFC fighter from Australia comes out to that, and it's just the weirdest. It's just the weirdest hype song, but it's also perfect for him.
Why?
Oh, Alexander Volkanovski is maybe one of the greatest athletes, just personality-wise, in history. Like, everyone was calling him old before his last fight, so then he did this promo video of him all dressed up, kind of like old, and 20 minutes of him being like, I can't watch the TV. He's got, like, the dial tone. It was just great. So, that's a great song.
Hey, did I hear they were making a there was a new movie that is coming out that they're making a sequel of, and I'm just like right against it, but I can't remember what movie it was. Happy Gilmore 2.
Yeah, Happy Gilmore 2. I saw that.
Why?
Because everything needs a reboot these days, man. Everything
No,
needs
it doesn't.
Apparently, man.
Oh, they're gonna destroy that one. Although I do want to see Drew Carey kicking Adam. What do you call?
That would be hilarious. Are they gonna have Drew Carey in it? Because that would be hilarious.
They got it. Or are they gonna bring Sandler back as Happy Gilmore, and the first swing he makes, he blows his back out, and that's the end of the movie.
Oh, this is no surprise, and I think we talked about this last time. I've never seen Happy
Gilmore. You have not seen Happy Gilmore. Come on. That was like a weekly show on CBC.
I'm not a movie watcher.
I'm not gonna lie, I've actually never watched it either. I just know enough to go on. Bullshit my way. It's on Netflix or something. It's one that I pass all the time when I'm high, thinking like, I'll watch this, and I'm like, do I really want to watch Adam Sandler for an hour and a half right now?
He doesn't have his usual antics in it. It's actually really good.
That's what they always say, though, man. I'd rather go watch what's that terrible Nikki. I'd rather go watch Nikki or something with that.
So you're telling me you've never seen Bob Barker grab Adam Sandler and beat him up?
I've seen it on TikTok, but I've never seen the whole movie. No,
you gotta see the whole thing, man.
I understood Bob Barker's in there, so when you said Drew Carey, I understood the joke. I got where you're going from. But
you gotta see Bob Barker beating up Adam Sandler.
Man, I mean, but honestly, Drew Carey hasn't been as good as Barker on Price is Right, so he'll probably just ruin the movie too, right? So
but I'm saying Bob Barker sitting there, if fake fighting like this while walking off the field after beating the daylights on Adam Sandler, it's the greatest thing ever.
If you want to see a good fight scene, the new Roadhouse, man, that was some of the fight scenes in that were epic.
The original Roadhouse was freaking over to the top. I would imagine this is even worse.
Oh, man. Conor McGregor pretty much playing himself. Like, with Jake Gyllenhaal, who doesn't give a shit, but, like, he's of everybody.
Actually, I watched Top Gun Maverick a little while ago here. That's also kind of over the top.
I don't remember the last movie I've watched. Well, no, it was Finding Nemo. Or actually, Finding Dory. But that's because gotta watch The Fish with the little one.
Oh, what did I make my kids watch the other day? I made my kids watch something.
Which is the movie with the animated dachshund, like wiener dog that uses the thing for like massaging his back and all.
Are you talking about the Slinky dog from Toy Story?
Oh no, there's a different movie.
Wiener dog that massages back.
The Secret Life of Pets. That's what it says.
Oh. I don't think I've ever seen the sequel or any of that. My kids never really were in. My kids aren't into DreamWorks as much. It's all Disney right now, or what my kids watch, because they're at that age. They watch like streamers on YouTube and stuff, and they'll watch the same guy talk about Geometry Rush or Fortnite and all these games. And I'm like, why don't you play? We'll play after we find out what to do, and then they never play.
Mine do, yeah. I kind of do that once in a while too. I'll watch. There's a one guy from Austin, Texas, Ray Navarre, as his name was. He was playing Gas Station Simulator the other day. And why would I watch Gas Station Simulator?
The only one from Texas you need to know is What's Up, Brother. That's the only one you need to know, sketch, man. You ever know? Oh, man, What's Up, Brother? Tuesday. Oh, man, that's the greatest.
I used to watch Rooster Teeth from Austin. That's all I used to watch.
Yeah. Man, we're almost at 2 hours. We gotta get the heck out of here, man.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, we wrap it up here. CFC After Hours, CFC Beyond the Countdown, whatever you want to call it. You get inside baseball, the insight into this is the usual stuff that we do after the podcast ends. Hope folks enjoyed that. Let us know if you want us to do more of this going forward. But we got to wrap it up here because I got to get the audio file so I can get that posted and go to bed. So thanks to everybody who stuck around with us, and tune in next week for our CFL Draft recap here on the Canadian Football Countdown. Thanks for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.